Hello and welcome to At the Forefront, Fintech Conversations. My name is Eric Soderberg. I'm a managing partner here at Forefront. Forefront is a full-service brand, communications, and marketing agency, and we focus pretty specifically on capital markets and institutional fintechs. And today I'm excited to be joined by Senior Vice President Michael Kingsley. Michael heads up our PR and media practice, and part of that is our media presentation and messaging training, which is what we're here to talk about today. So welcome, Michael.
Hi, Eric. Happy to be here talking about it. It's part of the job I really like.
Yeah, as
It's a
do
lot of
I.
fun.
Yeah. So look, Michael, you've been doing this for a while. You were a former journalist yourself. Can you just start by talking about how the media has changed over the years and why does that make training so important?
Yeah, it's changed tremendously. And actually, when we do our training, the first slide we have right up there is how the audiences have changed for presentations and how the media has changed for media training. And what you would expect, what's pretty obvious is obviously the effects of the pandemic, but the change really started 5-10 years before. There's been incredible consolidation in the media. People know this a lot. And what that's meant is for our clients in fintech and capital markets, there are very few trade publications anymore that focus on our channel specifically. Things have been consolidated, and the larger publications are the ones that cover more. So there are fewer media opportunities out there. Also, with the consolidation in the newsrooms, that means the reporters you're speaking to are much more junior, they're much more harried, pulled in lots of different directions. And what this means is that when we, as a PR and marketing firm, get our clients these opportunities to talk to the media, they're more important than they've ever been, and they really need to take advantage of what's going on. So they need training to sort of break through, make their messages more memorable amidst all that clutter and all those distractions that I just described that the journalists are dealing with. On the presentation side, the same thing applies with audiences who are there and are distracted and are, have competing content. If it's virtual, they have other screens open and that sort of thing.
That makes sense. Can you talk a little bit about the Forefront training that we conduct and kind of what goes into that and what does that look like?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different for every client. We customize it, of course, but generally the standard is kind of a half-day training session, like a 3 or 4 hour training session. We like to get multiple executives in there so they can kind of bounce off of each other a little bit. And there's some components that are pretty consistent across whether it's media or presentation or just overall messaging training. One thing we do is we always have a deck to go through some of the basics, but we don't look at it as a lecture or a lesson. We really try and make it interactive. You can tell I like to talk, but I tell the trainees that if I'm doing all the talking, we're not probably getting them exactly what they need. So we really try and make it an interactive conversation. If we're really working on messages, sometimes a little bit of that is workshopping out the messages, even if we've developed them, tweaking them a little bit and practicing them out in a Q&A session. And that can be just two people talking, or it can be, kind of a mock interview as well when we do that part of it. So that's what it really breaks down into is the training session with the deck, which comes in the middle. We have a video exercise at the beginning where they practice introducing themselves, their elevator pitch, that kind of thing, get into the deck, and then we move on to the hardcore Q&A, mock interviews, and that sort of stuff. And we review it together. It can be a little bit intimidating when it's up on a big screen in a conference room.
I'm glad you mentioned the video part, because that I know for most people too, be in a small conference room and suddenly have a camera on them can be pretty intimidating by itself. And I think that's just a great way to practice too. So that's always a great.
Oh, we've definitely designed it with a little bit of an intimidation factor. We have a nice, big, very professional looking big microphone and lights and stuff like that. And that's fun, but it also simulates what you're walking into. Also, when the deck I used, the first picture, the cover is a big microphone right in your face. And that's to remind you that no matter how seasoned an executive you are, it can be intimidating when the lights go on and when the microphone's in your face and the pressure's on because of what we talked about before, that there's fewer of these opportunities. Even as we're able to get them for you, you have to take advantage of them.
Michael, I know there's a range, but for our viewers and listeners here, can you talk about the types of people that we are typically training?
Yeah, it's a wide range. We've trained all the way from the C-suite. We are working with one of the major exchanges right now, training their full C-suite, product officers, people who are in sales, and even engineers who are making their first presentation, speaking to an audience for the first time. So it's really the full spectrum. A lot of it depends on, who our client base is. So fintechs that are coming out of stealth mode and so on. Very often it's the CEO. For our larger clients that have lots of different business lines and so on, it could be a product officer or somebody like that.
And Michael, I know I've said it. I think you've said it a few times too. We've talked about media training, presentation training. There's this idea of messaging training. Can you sort of spell out sort of the difference between those offerings?
So you're getting a little bit of messaging training in everything we do, because it's just so essential. That's what we're trying to do. We don't spend a ton of time on getting rid of ums and ahs and where to put your hands and that sort of thing. It's really about organizing your thoughts and delivering those messages in an impactful way so that they're memorable. It's, if you're doing a podcast and the audience is listening along, it's great if they're feeling what you're saying and understanding it, but it's even better if they can remember it and communicate it to somebody else. Similarly, with a journalist, you want them to be able to write it down and then remember the conversation and what's important. So that's the messaging part that infuses everything. And then it takes various forms with the media or the presentations. And as I said before, it's really based on who your audience is and who you're trying to communicate with. In the presentations, you're speaking directly to the audience. There's no interlocutor there. You need to keep their attention. You need to match the expectations of what the presentation is about. You have to, if it's virtual, you got to compete with the other screens. If you're speaking to the media, well, that's a different ball game, right? Because unless it's a live broadcast or podcast thing, you've got the journalist standing in between you and the audience. So it's how do you get them to remember it and convey what you want them to convey.
Got it. Now, Michael, in addition to helping people tell their story in a more compelling and memorable way, how about things like how to handle the tough, reporter conversation or a tough question that comes from the audience at a live event? Is that stuff covered as well?
Yeah, we have in the presentation, we have we have specific slides that say how to handle tough questions. And then when we do the Q&A, there are definitely ones where I throw you a curveball and try and get you off your game a little bit. Not to give away too much, but the first step is take a deep breath when you get those tough questions. You don't want to be seeing red when you respond. And you really want to engage with the question and then go back to your kind of key messages that have infused what you practiced, and you go back to those. I'm giving a little bit too much away, but
yeah, I was going to say
that's how it works.
Stop there, Michael, because thank you very much. That was a great overview. Always great chatting. I would say again to our listeners and viewers, if any of your executives or salespeople or pretty much anybody that's out and about representing your firm, need some media or presentation training, we would love to help. You can find out more about Forefront at www.forefrontcoms. That's COMMS.com. And we hope to hear from you soon. Thank you very much. Thanks again, Michael. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Have a good day.